make everything the way to be.
I know. He did that on purpose. He's trying to get some
You're
side.
welcome.
Get it.
Whoa, that is so cool.
Okay, finally. We are live. So we're talking to Kaylee from the HoneyStead, who I've followed for years, and who years ago sent me one of your hive tools and some of your honey.
Yes.
And I love, by the way, I don't get a lot of time to look at YouTube videos.
Yeah, same.
Your channel happens to be one of the ones that I will pop in on occasion.
Same.
And the Apothecary is super interesting. First of all, how lucky to be with your mom
I know.
and to have such a building
Yes.
with all of that going on. And I did not expect you to produce a book. So would you talk a little about the inspiration? Who convinced you to do this and why?
Oh, gosh. Well, I started writing the book probably, I think between all of my notes, it's been 6 or maybe even 7 years. I mean, with learning about the honeybees and all their medicinal byproducts, and then, of course, growing into the herbs and growing into the space and learning that there's so much importance in looking at the foundation. Okay, so the foundation of my homestead, how that's grown to a point, but also it's the bees. Watching my pastures completely come to life. And I don't know. It's just you kind of sit back and you look.
Okay, when you say watching your pastures come to life, are you saying in response to the honeybees being present, therefore what they show a preference for becomes abundant in the environment?
The other thing that's really cool is we homestead, okay? So when I had bees, I added bees. Obviously, I planted herbs for the bees. I use herbs, cook with them, make tea, but then watching how the bees went to all the herbs and then doing the deep dive into, what are these plants doing to their health? So white clover, for instance, in our pastures, that is so much protein to the bees and to the brood. But then because my pastures have come alive, my animals are thriving, and then I do the deep dive into what the clover does to the soil and how it regenerates and adds nitrogen back in. So it is one big circle, and so I felt like when I wanted to write a book, I had to call it the Beekeepers Apothecary because it is foundational. And so when I approached it, I wanted people to have an idea to start with their foundation. So I went in and I obviously broke down all of the medicinal byproducts of the honeybees, but then I hit each system of the body and share different herbs that help support each system. So when you're becoming your own herbalist, it teaches you. So all in all, it's been a lifetime journey between growing up feral.
You grew up feral?
I was 100%.
You did not. What?
I'm still feral. I will forever be feral.
So how much of this is inspired by your mother? It seems like she really has a sense of the old country kind of thing.
She does. And I think with her is like she had it and she knew it. And then of course when you have it when you're younger and you grow up, you kind of forget, you get away from it. And then there's always that beauty of going back to your roots, what brought you joy in your youth or your childhood. And so even with her, it's like bringing her back to the herbs and all of us. My mom, her foundation with herbal medicine is culinary. And everybody forgets that our culinary herbs are actually the medicinal ones. So cooking with thyme, cooking with oregano, cooking with rosemary. And so my family, the introduction into herbal medicine was always food. And we forage and we grow and we do, so it just. You
forage?
I do forage.
Give me an example of you foraging.
Typically I'm rustling through a whole bunch of plants and I've got briars all over me.
How much property? You have quite a bit of property.
Oh, we have
So when you're foraging, this is your own yard?
Yeah.
But how big is your yard? We're talking...
we have 60 acres.
60, okay.
Different terrain, so certain things like to grow up on the hills, up in the kind of our small little mountain, and then we have the topography is very interesting because it's hill, mountain, valley, you've got a large pasture and then creeks, so each plant has its own little system. So yeah, just knowing what to look
Now,
for.
undertaking a book, you're also a mother.
I am.
So most people, when they're doing a book, they need a couple of years of being left alone.
This took. Yeah.
How did that work out?
My kids really were a huge part of this because while I was teaching them the things that I knew, I wanted to, even us as adults, we learn the best if somebody explains something to us like we were a child. Not making us less than, but that's the way I teach. It's let's show from the beginning. And so for my kids, that is how I learned to teach them, which then in turn I realized we learn better that way too. So actually they were very much an inspiration. But for them taking the time, and they understood that this is something I wanted to do, and so I worked on it every single day for a good solid 3 years every single day.
And who's the publisher?
Homestead Living.
Homestead Living.
I was approached by probably 15 different publishing companies, and I decided to go with one that understood that I am a homesteader too.
Okay.
And I didn't want to just put out any book. I wanted to really put out something that I had been working on for many, many years, and they let me do it. So
How much control did you have?
I had a good bit control.
A good bit.
Yeah, they let me do the herbs and the pictures and
What were some of the surprising parts or struggles that you had with what maybe one of the editors wanted you to do versus what you had a vision for?
So I think the one thing that I was a little nervous about is one of my editors didn't quite know herbal medicine, and so I wasn't sure how that was going to go. But it actually turned out to be a blessing because they learned it. And the questions that they asked were perfect. And they allowed me to kind of go and elaborate into different things. Because I really wanted to try to hit that beginner, but then also there's so much more to grow in this. There's over 100 herbs that have different profiles that talk about all the constituents, all the herbal actions, what they're used for, how to use them, and then recipes. So many recipes.
Okay. How much skill and talent does someone need to have when they get this book in order to implement?
They just have to have the desire to want.
Just the desire.
Just the desire.
They don't need a big apothecary and some big chemistry background.
There are so many herbs that just grow right outside your front door.
Okay.
And learning those and what they are.
Pick an unexpected herb, something that has a lot of value that a lot of people dismiss.
Broadleaf plantain.
What is it?
Broadleaf plantain.
Broadleaf plantain.
That is one that everybody completely looks and considers as a weed, and that as a beekeeper, that's probably my number one herb that I go to, because I'll go in and I'll harvest that leaf and I make it as a poultice, I will make it as a salve, but if you get stung by a bee, that will literally pull the venom out of where you've gotten stung. You will not have the reaction, and that's...
Okay, off the cuff.
Okay.
Years ago, would this have been considered witchcraft?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any legitimate Wiccan style people in your circle?
No. Not really.
No.
But the thing is I approach it as we literally have been given absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And I do believe God gave us everything, and I believe that these herbs and everything are here for a reason, and I have absolutely no problem saying that. I think there's a lot of herbalists, a lot of people who want to be herbalists that are afraid that this is witchcraft, but my belief is I don't worship the plant, I worship the creator.
The creator of the plant.
So.
And I'm guessing everything else.
And everything else.
Okay.
Honeybees included.
Okay. So let's say someone was at a conference and they wore out their voice.
Oh, honey.
What would it be? Straight honey? Is that the best thing?
I do love a good straight honey. Mm-hmm.
Which
will help. Yeah.
Just hit my.
Yeah.
That will help, and you sell that.
I do sell honey.
Were those shelves full at the beginning of the conference?
They were absolutely full.
So you have a huge following. The people that are coming here, is this an introduction to you and the HoneyStead? a lot of them already know who you were, they knew you were coming?
I was I was not expecting so many people to know who I was.
Okay.
So,
you do have a YouTube channel,
I do.
and it's also called The HoneyStead, is that right?
Yeah.
And you're also on social media like Facebook?
Yep.
Is it also The HoneyStead?
Yeah.
And Instagram, you're saying? Anything else?
There is a TikTok that floats around whenever I get a little bored. I'll post there, but most of the time it's YouTube and Facebook.
Now, you do a lot of this, I've seen with your mother. Do you keep your kids away from social media for the most part?
I do. I respect them. When they were little, they wanted to, but as they've gotten older, they're
right.
And I have no problem if every once in a while they might pop in, but I always ask their permission if it's okay.
But they're not like wanting to be on camera.
Not always. I kind of keep them private. So
now let's talk about how your book is laid out.
Sure.
Is all the photography done by? Did you have to get a photographer?
Yeah, I have a local friend that's a photographer. He came. It was about I think 2-3 days back to back, and we got all the pictures.
In 2 to 3 days, you did all the pictures?
All the photography.
Holy cow, that's fast. It was an all
day long. I had everything on a spreadsheet. I had each chapter written out on my spreadsheet. I knew exactly what herb I got. That's why I was so adamant on like some of the designs, because I knew I feature each herb based by their action. And so when I categorized it, that's how my brain works. I need to know what each action does. So I broke it down that way. But yeah, and there's the propolis.
And this is a large format book.
It is.
And it's heavy.
It's the size of a child. They say writing a book is like birthing a child, and after I picked it up for the very first time, I said, oh, this is about the weight of a child. They're not wrong.
Is this the size people want it to be, or do you get any feedback like, I just wish it were more like a cookbook?
I've gotten a lot of feedback saying that this is exactly what they were looking for, because not only do I explain it, but I give the recipes. A lot of books, you don't get recipes, you get just herbal profiles, which is great, but that was one of my issues. I have so many books, and there were very few that had everything that I wanted it to have. So I said, I wanted herbs, I wanted honey, I wanted recipes that explain how to infuse herbs into honey, and then that's just an added bonus to a tea blend that you might create. You're getting extra herbal benefits.
When did you publish? When was it available?
So I believe, if I remember correctly, it came out at the end of August.
Oh, so it's been out since August of last year.
I believe August, September of last year.
And how many were in that first publication? How many editions? 10,000.
Yeah.
You tell us where you're at?
We're going on our last I heard, we're probably doing our third print very soon.
Your third printing of 10,000?
And it might already be right now. So
that's very successful. That is huge.
So
that is great.
Yeah. So it's a number, it's on Amazon. It's ranked a number 2 bestseller in alternative medicine.
In alternative medicine.
And it is in the 2000s of all books on Amazon right now.
Wow.
I was not expecting that either.
I did not, but seeing the book, this is a top tier book.
Yeah.
And it's very surprising to me how quickly you were actually able to put it together.
Yeah.
And have you received any feedback that was like a constructive criticism that maybe in another edition you might make some changes?
The only thing that I've received is people want more.
Okay.
There have been many reviews. A lot of people have been very happy with it. So. Okay. Yeah,
so if you did another edition, is there something you would add or take out, or it's all good?
I think if I were to do another edition, I want to go into foraging and growing. I want to go into that. So.
Are you a mushroom person?
I am 100% a mushroom person.
Mushrooms scare me because I don't feel like I understand what I'm looking at.
Do you want to know what my son says about mushrooms?
I would like to know.
He says every mushroom is edible at least one time.
Oh no, I don't like that story.
No.
This is my friend Paula. Do you have any questions for her, by the way? Does anything strike your mind?
I have a question about implementing some of your things in the hive itself.
Okay. Yeah. So we are doing a few different things. I've kind of been personally looking into and testing it out. Maybe at one point I'll have some literature that I could put out there. But one of the things that I've been doing is using thyme and putting it at the entrance within the entrance of my colonies. The reason why is because the volatile oils that are on thyme, it's thymol. That is what is in most of our mite treatments. So I'm hoping at some point in the next 10 years I'll have enough data to kind of show that we can use different herbs to help in that manner. I'm testing out stinging nettle as well, and I'm also testing out the catnip to put on the entrances. And then
so that's a mint family catnip?
It's in the mint family.
Are you doing them as sprigs, or
I'm just cutting them and I'm putting it directly at the entrance. And so the bees, you do have to, and not everybody likes this, but the bees do have a little obstacle course that they have to go through. But then on the other hand, that process of them rubbing onto the herbs they go into the colony. What do? Then they start cleaning themselves. Well, that cleaning and a hygienic process helps with, breaking down. And we have not had to treat in probably 5 years. And so
since you've been implementing this?
Yeah.
Have you done an actual scientific control?
I'm trying right now, and that's the thing. That's what I've been kind of working on. The other thing too that we take into consideration is my technique of beekeeping might not be what everybody does, but I do let my bees swarm. I catch them, and I do believe that the brood break is very important in Varroa. I also do believe the bees do very well on picking their queen and raising them up. That's another thing that I know a lot of people are like, don't do, but that's what I do. And then the other thing that I don't do is ventilate. I'm not big on ventilation only because...
You don't ventilate?
I don't ventilate.
Through the top of the hive?
I do not ventilate.
You don't do it?
I do not do it.
That's why we're the same.
Oh, we are the same. So the reason why is because, doing colony cutouts, I've never seen ventilation in a wall.
Correct.
And so I've seen
the tiniest entrance you've ever found. Great.
Tiniest, I leave as much propolis as possible. Because propolis is from the herbs. That right there is what they're using.
Do you track your bees to see where they're getting propolis from?
So we have a wood mill, and that's really cool.
That's right,
because I get to watch the bees actually go and collect the propolis from the wood mill. So I know they're getting it from all over. But we have a lot of pine. I know we have a lot of different. There's so many different trees in our area, but
if you scar a pine tree so that sap's running out, do the bees come to it?
I have seen one or two, but the other thing that I will say I've seen a lot of is cottonwood. Okay. They'll go to the cottonwood buds. So in February, if we get a warm day, the cottonwood buds will start to kind of have that sap, which I use medicinally as
which
well.
Which is defensive for the plant.
Very. But they'll collect it and bring it back, and that I think was probably my aha moment of seeing what they were doing. But I believe that the bees are the biggest, they are our best teacher. And the more we sometimes do, the worse it is.
Yeah, we're reducing it.
Yeah.
Love that story. It's very holistic.
Yeah.
Favorite chapter? Show us some part of the book that really, I know that's hard to do. Just give us a sense of the book and how it's laid out.
So it is laid out in a way where I go through, obviously, the introduction into herbal medicine, but I think my favorite chapter is chapter 1, going in and talking about, sharing my story, why we look at herbal medicine, not just as a Band-Aid, but we really need to look at it as the holistic approach. You're more than just a symptom or a diagnosis. And then, what do? You do have to be your first patient. You look at the food, look at removing the things that are not serving you, get it out, and then learning, how to develop a protocol. I go into, probably chapter 1 is my favorite, which goes into the bees and teaches, you know, all of the medicinal byproducts and what honey is made of, what it can be used for. My background in the operating room.
Your background in the operating room?
Yeah, I'm a surgical first assistant in the OR. I did that for many years. I actually haven't, I should take that back. I was a surgical first assistant. I don't practice anymore. I could always go back to it, but right now I'm on this path. But I did ortho and I did neuro, and when your bone bleeds in the OR, when we're doing surgery, we use sterilized beeswax, you know, to help clot your bone from bleeding. So bees have so much more benefit than just honey, and yeah, so I share that story. So.
Okay, so last question, I'm going to let you go.
Sure.
Plants that you have intentionally planted because of your need for this resource for the apothecary.
So my top plant that I plant, there's so many. Passion flower is one, Passiflora incarnata.
You know what that is?
So passion flower is so great as a sedative for insomnia. That one is probably my number one. The honeybees love it.
Passion flower.
Passion flower.
Okay.
So it is.
And it's naturally occurring?
It is. It's native in Virginia. It's native in many areas. It's here somewhere.
But it wouldn't grow in the Northeast. It wouldn't be in the...
It might be.
Paula says it does. I'm going to answer that now and save people asking questions.
Okay, this is passion flower.
An annual? Okay. That's passion flower.
That's passion flower.
Oh,
So
I've seen this. Yes.
I use the
I
leaves
have seen that.
and I use the flowers. Other ones that I grow that's not beneficial necessarily to the honeybees, but I absolutely love it, is oats, milky stage oats. So it's a Venus sativa, it's oats. So you could grow it out. I harvest it when it's premature and I make it into a tincture. It's a nerve tonic. So if you think of your nervous system, if you think of your nerve as an extension cord and you've got the wires on the inside and then that rubber coating on the outside, that's the myelin sheath. So if there's damage to the nervous system, if there's damage to the myelin sheath, milky stage oats has the ability to help restore that and repair that. So we use a lot of it for people who have gone through trauma, people who have gone through PTSD, people that their nerves are just kind of fight or flight. And I grow it just like grass, throw it out, and it's wonderful. So, and it's perfect for your nervous system. So
I was ready to be impressed, but I'm more impressed than I thought I was going to. I want to thank you for your time.
Yeah, no.
And thank you so much for doing this interview. And I can't wait to help share about this book because I think it's going to be fantastic.
I hope you like it. So
Thank you.
I hope you like it. I hope you like it. We could go on and on. So got it. My best friend. No.
Have it in Egypt, Navi.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna just.
What?
You are going to.
Oh, my best friend forever. That's forever. You just connected us through eternity.